Hello ladies and gentlemen, and welcome back to Dissection, Amnesia versus SOMA. That's the short version anyway. This is part 9, we've come so very far. I think there's over 4 hours of freaking footage now, and we're finally into what I assume will be the last section for the gameplay segment. So, you know, let's dive right in, shall we? Last time we were talking a lot about the different things that SOMA professes, the few changes it made compared to Amnesia, and we're going to continue with that. So, something I found interesting about SOMA was that there are about 10 billion lines of dialogue that a lot of people will never be exposed to because of the requirements. Take this part of the game. You're supposed to activate the emergency system on the Curie by removing the tendrils from the WoW that are keeping it functional. You can visit Catherine throughout the steps before you know anything. After you find the tendrils, and after you actually remove the tendrils, will result in different responses. Frictional do try and create a sense of reactionary environment. The actions you take, however small in difference from others, do have real-world consequences that other characters react to. It's neat, and honestly I had no idea until I saw Markiplier skip Catherine entirely until he'd removed the tendrils and ran into the escape vessel.
It's gotta be. Yes! 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 Ha-ha!
What are all these emergencies? What did you do?
I don't know what I did.
Okay? Can you get us out of here?
Yes, I just need to pump the water out and get a trajectory in place.
Hurry up!
Just a second. Alright, take me off. Hold on to something.
Oh, man.
This reminds me of that speech that Thomas gave about the little rabbit that says, "Oi mate, congratulations," or whatever. You know, the attempt to remove repetition so that characters don't seem like they're using canned lines and they actually seem reactionary. Now, there is still that element in SOMA that I've been talking about previously, the whole doing simple tasks thing in amongst horrible creatures that makes the task much more difficult and simply something you don't even want to engage in whatsoever. It's a part of the atmosphere and everything really carrying that sense of something not being quite right.
You've got to be shitting me. Oh my god! Ugh.
This is the same tension that eventually makes innocuous moments of flickering light strike people in very significant ways.
Something, I don't know. Probably not. That's probably a lie.
What's so interesting downstairs? Labs and offices. Maybe the shuttle station.
Should we go check?
Rather not.
Honestly, Frictional uses this to their advantage all the time. They even have tooltips. The most innocuous thing possible work as ways to make players freak out.
Oh, Jesus! Chance of being noticed by whom? Be careful when— oh, Jesus. I don't like that. I don't want these hints.
Pretty neat, isn't it? Alright, okay, let's get negative then.
We also only ever saw one screen that actually said, "You died." The rest of the time we simply stood up and continued from the point where we got knocked out, so the weight of each enemy encounter was depleted a bit as a result.
Well, I appreciate how you worded that criticism, but I have to disagree, you see?
And then even if you are detected and worst case scenario attacked, they just knock you to the ground and then they run off. After a few seconds you get back to your feet with a gimped movement speed, but you can carry on all the same.
Okay, but that's a little disingenuous. You're implying that happens every time when you literally only get one death.
By the visuals and find the robots genuinely scary.
No, not
Eventually,
Joseph.
You're going to get caught. And this is the final nail in the underwater coffin that hammers home that you have no reason to be scared of these enemies. Because when you die, you come immediately back to life and get to try again with no penalty. Even after a game over, you just reload and try again with frequent checkpoints. The game itself nudges you toward this—
Okay, stop. Just fucking stop. All of you. Jesus. Especially Joseph, since he's going on another one of his presumptive rants about design without a single reference. Again. So let's tackle the actual death system and how it works. In SOMA they give you what is essentially 100 health and every enemy hits you for 50 damage. Upon hitting you, the enemy will knock you unconscious and leave you in the area, giving you the opportunity to try again. This is very similar to Amnesia in that the monsters would remove half of your health on the first hit, giving you a chance to escape, which honestly, since they gimp the monster's speed and there's so many places to hide, most of the time you'll be able to escape. In SOMA they go one step further and allow you to essentially retry the area. Remember how I said you get rewarded for exploration? Well, there are health nodes, or flower butts, all over Pathos too, and you can find them to provide you with a return of that 50 health, putting you back in control of the situation. Why is it this way? Well, there's a piece of design philosophy that Frictional run with, and I happen to agree with 100%. Frictional do not want you to die. They consider death an immersion breaker, and it often can be. Remember when we discussed the rubber banding in the game? How the chase sequences are in fact extremely easy, but they use sound design to make them feel like you only just made it? How about how they worked in opportunities to tell players how they were missing something to help them along? All of this is to get players moving to the end without appearing to. When that random faggot from earlier said the game holds your hand, his evidence was the fact that you don't die. That's wrong. The fact that they technically do hold your hand is shown quite evidently by all the things I just mentioned, but honestly...
If you can't tell, does it matter?
Regardless, check out what Joseph said in total again.
By the visuals, and find the robots genuinely scary. Eventually, you're going to get caught. And this is the final nail in the underwater coffin that hammers home that you have no reason to be scared of these enemies, because when you die, you come immediately back to life and get to try again with no penalty.
The final nail that hammers home a point? Stop mixing metaphors, you idiot. This is why we read our scripts, Joseph. Right, so first of all, note how his footage of being caught as a guarantee is that of him staring directly at Akers and then moving when he gets very close, flies in the face of all the game has taught him up to this point. Then he proceeds to criticize the fact that you return to a checkpoint in the game, as if the game is supposed to be rogue or some shit. What do you want, Joseph? To be returned to the main fucking menu? The goal here is not to die. In Frictional's eyes, you fucked up. You were given the rule set, and you broke them. But now it has to be the game's fault, and there's some grand point about design you're sure to make as the reason why this is all a failure of the game. Go right ahead, son. Make an ass of yourself.
The game itself nudges you toward this realization, because at first the gameplay in SOMA is basically hide and seek. You don't have any weapons or tools or anything to use against the monsters. I'm not saying the game should give you the option to fight them, but there's nothing else to do with them except hide at the beginning.
The game is hide and seek? He says this while showing a moment in gameplay where you have to dodge the construct while reaching the console to be able to open the communication center. Nah, just sum it up to hide and seek. How isn't any other horror game hide and seek anyway? What horror games do you even like, Joseph? Alright, he never mentions that stuff. I mean, admittedly, stuff like Resident Evil is not exactly hide and seek, but there are plenty of enemies in those games that you actually have to avoid because you can't just easily kill them. He goes on to say that there's nothing to do with the enemies until you use the sound distractions on them, thus proving them to be simple AI and that you're undeniably faster than them. The funny thing here is that the AI works similarly to that of Amnesia's. The enemies saunter forwards towards you when they notice you, and then they break into a fast walk and then a sprint. Only the sprint is indeed faster than your running speed, and this is to build the sense of being chased and give the players a chance to escape. What you are doing, Joseph, is what anyone can do. It's what I'm doing right now. If you figure out the AI, then they're not going to be nearly as scary. But that's something you have to consider in your analysis of a horror game. When you play it about 1 million times like I have, things just aren't as mysterious anymore, nor are they anywhere as scary. Did you think that this kind of AI isn't almost in every survival horror game? Don't worry though, Joseph, I remember my first video review too. Oh fuck, never mind. Anyway, Frictional really wanted people to make it through the game without dying. It was a tall order and they had a system in place to keep you from it, but if you fucked up too many times, they were forced to give you the game over. Then what? Well, they return you to an earlier part in the level, and for the most part give you a small breather, and encourage you to beat the scenario once again. I don't know what else would make sense. They can't take a resource away from you like they would be able to in Amnesia, though the hilarious thing is that they would give you more light in Amnesia if you died. It makes sense on paper, I understand that. Death that holds no punishment aside from a quick reset just removes the threat. But not in this genre. Not really. The reason you don't want to die is that you don't want to die. I'll cover this more in my Atmosphere segment, but seriously, these games in this genre, they make you want to live at all costs because of the fear of death, not the fear of losing your progress, or the fear of losing your streak, or the fear of losing your resources. In this game, it's simply a fear for your life. You want to live. This is just another issue with these YouTube reviewers ignoring the genre and judge it against any other game. It's the same argument as saying the story isn't written very well in Mario 64. I'd be sitting here like, who the fuck cares, mate? Anyway, some other things that are worth touching on. When you get hit in the game, it gives you blurred vision. This is obviously a form of punishment, and narratively it means you probably have a few things knocked around inside your robo-suit. This would be why one of the healing butts will fix you. It's a direct connection to the WoW, and the WoW is concerned with sustaining the life it connects to wherever and whenever, and all you really need to do is have a tune-up. But as we could tell, it was draining the butts of their magical electrical energy, I guess. Anyway, it could be pretty annoying to look at, right, Jim?
So anyway, at least this is a good chance to show you what happens when you get attacked. You get hit by a monster, you basically get one more chance to live. You limp around, and your vision is all blurry. And I don't like it. That's actually one of my negatives for the game. Now, there's narrative reasons for it, but I can't handle it. It's like bad 3D glasses effect.
He's right, it's annoying. I'm not sure how I feel about it in total since, I mean, it never really bothered me, and it actually made sense in a way. It's a punishment for fucking up, so it's kind of working the way it's supposed to. I mean, the amount of people who've been criticizing the game for not having any punishments and then they never mention this is beyond me, but the really, really, really weird part to me is that a lot of people have complained about this thing. It's called chromatic aberration, right? It's when the screen goes blah, blah, blah. You can turn it off. in the fucking options menu. Why not do that? Why complain about something when you can just turn it off in the fucking menu? Still, the way Jim plays through SOMA in his video shows every kind of lack of care for what it is, no exploration for the actual narrative content and actually trying to get a good look at the enemies. Just does nothing to help the game in its genre. Despite all that, he has loads of good things to say about it, so I don't know. Just be careful, basically. If you're too carefree in something like this, there's no point in really playing it. However, I do understand that you can strike a balance.
You mean... Yeah, that's a part of Reed's Vivarium. It's a long story, forget it.
Oodle doodle doodle doodle. Look what I got, Miss Catherine. Okay.
Regardless, once again, the individual segments and facts about the gameplay and the mindset you're meant to adopt should let you guys know how both of these games are very much horror and very much scary, to the point where you struggle to speak properly.
My physique, my face can't take your face.
God, oh, they just gave me chills. Oh.
Frictional was trying to make SOMA a scary, tense experience, and they failed. This is the main reason why I said earlier that the gameplay in SOMA is a waste of time, because it's largely about the robotic monsters that you encounter throughout the Pathos 2 facility, and the game tries so hard to get you on edge with the tense, suffocating music, the loud noises and crashing sounds. It tries to assault all of your senses. It's screaming at you like a nervous dog, hey, be scared, you should be scared right now, are you scared? You scared? You scared yet? Instead of actually scaring you.
Jesus Christ, I think you broke the record for most fallacious comments fit into a single clip. Let me just break that up a bit. You said Frictional failed to make a scary, tense experience. Maybe for you, faggot, but I don't see many people agreeing with you, and as long as one person doesn't, your statement is fucking wrong. Who the fuck made you the arbiter of horror? You don't get to decide what isn't or is scary. How about you start using the terms I think and in my opinion? Next up, you say the gameplay is thus a waste of time, considering it's mainly about the monsters, and if the game isn't scary, then what's the point of monster gameplay? Well, firstly, your original point is fucking moot, so your development of the moot point is moot too. It's like saying pizza is the most pointless thing on the planet because bread doesn't work. Secondly, the gameplay isn't mainly monsters. It's there for the environmental storytelling, the puzzles, the questions being asked. Do you want me to calculate the entire time spent with monsters versus the time spent absorbing the world, sir? I fucking will. I will do this just to prove your stupid ass wrong, and I won't even use my game time because that would be cheating. Markiplier spends an estimated total of 7.5 hours in the game. I spent about 10 hours in my first playthrough, but I think Mark is more concerned with reaching those monster parts because he can be extremely entertaining when they happen. Do you want to know how much time he spent in creature sequences? It was about 1 hour and 24 minutes, and as I was going through, I was generous. Do you want to know what he spent more time doing? Exploring the world, solving the puzzles, thinking. Just thinking about what he was going to do and what those choices meant. That is the main gameplay. The creatures are indeed obstacles, but it doesn't make them any less terrifying. I feel like this is just a false equivalency. The enemies being in your way doesn't reduce them into a log in the road. They're still what they are, Joseph. The final thing he says in that little moment is how the game tries to convince you to be scared with sound design, a visual motif present throughout the game, and atmosphere, instead of actually scaring you. This absolute word porridge of a point bothers me so much I brought it up here, despite the fact that I'll be tackling it in atmosphere. I will wait to fully dissect that perspective, but you're all welcome to bathe in the retardation of that statement until then. Just think about it. Using atmosphere, visuals, and sound design to convince you to be scared instead of actually scaring you. I can't believe this video is liked this much. It's insane. Anyway, the last two things about SOMA's gameplay first would be the hand-holding in general. Hand-holding is a problem in video games these days. Many games will tell you exactly what to do and how to do it regularly. This takes away a feeling of control and almost convinces most players to fight it, and they end up being insta-killed for trying to explore things outside of what's being dictated to them. You can see a full effort in video games to really find a sweet spot though, a level of guiding players that is optional and matches the world you're in so that it doesn't bother veteran players while it assists the new players. And that's what handholding is for. It's so the people that are new to all of this have a chance at making it through. SOMA doesn't give a shit. The game itself is what I would consider to be adult. It is not going to hold your hand. Despite the mechanics I explained earlier, all of those things are just trying to bump you into sort of the goal where it's trying to get you. But none of them are straightforward. It's not going to tell you where to go and how to do it other than having an in-world description, and they would be available in real life. This goes the same for Amnesia. There was never a voice telling you where to go or what to do. You had to figure out what was needed from the notes and casual thoughts people wrote down in notes. This is a major effort to make people choose their own adventure, to give them an option and have them open the door. Still, reviewers seem to be a little torn on this.
And that's one thing I can say about this game, is that it does not hold your hand at all.
But wait a second. The other guy said...
All throughout the game, there's this sense of it kind of holding your hand constantly.
Guys, wait. I don't know who's right. Stop it. No!
It does not hold your hand at all.
Holding your hand constantly.
It does not hold your hand at all.
Holding your hand constantly.
It does not hold your hand at all.
Holding your hand constantly.
Oh god. I guess I'm stuck, ladies and gentlemen. Do I trust the infinite wisdom of GGG Man Lives, or do I trust the everlasting knowledge of Gameranx? Oh shit, that's the 3 million subscriber though. Well, you can't both be right, so I guess I'll make it easy and say you're both wrong. Still, this game isn't without its glitches, and that can still actively decimate gameplay.
Oh, hey, how's it going? Oh, I'm dead. I'm so dead. Oh, I'm so dead. Oh, what are you doing? Oh, you're in a suit. Oh, you're weird. Oh, why you gotta be so weird? Take one of these to the face. I got more where that came from, buddy. I got a chair with your name on it, you squiggly bitch. Oh god, I can't lift it. I'm really weak. Sorry, did I mention how wimpy I was? Oh, stop lollygagging. Oh, you're so weird with your wibbly walk. What, do you want to be my friend or something? Go screw yourself.
And I got so lost underwater when playing this on my stream that I ended up going outside of the map, which was pretty annoying. The water sequences are a little difficult to judge since everyone gets lost in different ways, though the thing that is definitive is that no one enjoys being lost. I would say it would be great if the game could have refined this sort of stuff, but if I have proved anything on my stream, it's that no game is safe from glitches at all. Oh. Yes. In conclusion for SOMA and its gameplay, anyway, SOMA didn't build on Amnesia with its mechanics. In fact, it stripped many of them in favor of being more immersive and realistic. This is generally considered a mistake. For me, I consider it a decent attempt at seeing whether or not it was going to provide a more gripping experience, but resulting in a more inferior one. Certainly from my perspective. I do also feel that considering how intelligent the design in Frictional's team is, that they should have seen this coming. Every comment about planning in video games should have pulled Thomas back into wanting to create a game with more mechanics in it. Ultimately, I don't know what the process for SOMA was, but I can guarantee you that if we were to clumsily throw some more mechanics in it now, it would likely be obstructive to the experience, since everything in the game was built from the ground up to focus on immersion.
But then someone said, are you going to do something new with the gameplay then? And like a small child in a school play who wasn't quite ready for an audience, Frictional Games burst into tears and had to be hustled back to their comfort zone by Mrs. Henderson.
And this is the result. Considering the climate for the industry, reducing the gameplay was not what people wanted, and you better believe they noticed it. People aren't as concerned with the project as a whole, they would prefer to pick on an aspect and point out how useless it's become. The gameplay in SOMA is just fucking fine in my opinion. It's not exceptional, but it serves to maintain the immersion of control and influence while engaging you in problem solving to ultimately serve you the sleeper hits of philosophy, and everything matches that experience in the game.
Just like any great sci-fi, it captivates the imagination with the morbid implications of questions that may face mankind's future. It creates situations where innocuous actions that are normal in this universe are contextualized into heavy-handed, disturbing atrocities.
Gameplay is meant to serve a purpose. The focus wasn't on making the most spookiest thing happen and shove all the gameplays in because this would make it better that way. Frictional don't make contrived, mediocre, copycat bullshit. They strive to make what is new and awe-inspiring on a level of unfelt fear, or in this case, unfelt dread.
All this mystery and cool names and awesome locations does nothing. The game simply isn't scary. It isn't tense because despite getting headbutted by the walking coral factories known as bad guys, it takes a good deal of hits to die, so you get headbutted, usually transporting that enemy a safe distance away, and then you wake up. There's almost no actual gameplay except finding ways to power things on without power or unpower things on that have power, and unlike, say, The Vanishing of Ethan Carter or even Everyone Has Gone to the Rapture, SOMA just creaks like an old boat anytime the story tries to get going, springing a leak just when you think it would, and then comes crashing down under the weight of its own rote gameplay. Add to that the almost immeasurably small emotional response you get from the characters, and you're left with an empty, leaking, crashing boat. It was just utterly disappointing in almost all ways, especially when it comes to doling out the story and, well, the gameplay.
You know, I was gonna respond, but then I remember that you're the guy who thought the story in SOMA was terrible and had zero depth. Fucking tool. Now you're talking about how the gameplay is just puzzles. Did everyone fucking miss the fact that the philosophy is tied in the gameplay? Oh wait, motherfucking Markiplier got that. Markiplier gets shat on for being an idiot, managed to pick up what every motherfucking reviewer seems to have glossed over. Scratch that, Aaron Signal, 0 punctuation, Super Bunny Hopple, nailed it.
I'm gonna say it right out. I love it. It's amazing. This was awesome. I loved everything about it. This game kept me engrossed. The philosophy of it, the scares of it, like it was such a cool game, such a well-made game, such a well-made idea, and yet I fear that it will go over a lot of people's heads if they don't really wrap their head around the subject.
It was just utterly disappointing in almost all ways, especially when it comes to doling out the story and, well, the gameplay.
Frictional was trying to make SOMA a scary, tense experience, and they failed.
But it's just a shame that in so many ways this is such a half-baked horror game that doesn't seem to take any risks.
Because if something goes on to continue the purpose that it set out to do, but it's a copy of what originally set out to do it, does that really matter? What's the difference? So, oh man, that was such a cool game, and just like, there's so few stories that don't. It's almost a bittersweet ending, but not really, because the point it's trying to make is that it from the perspective of those that were left behind, it's not satisfying. But for those that were copied, it is. It's a story that could only exist in this universe that they created for this express purpose to ask this question, and that is so cool.
Regardless, some people will simply not fucking get it.
Item management is the cornerstone of any good horror game, and it's completely absent here, and it's just disappointing.
Item management is the cornerstone of any good horror game. Fucking kill yourself. I can't be fucked to reply to that goofy shit. Neither SOMA nor Amnesia have a prologue or cutscenes. It's all treated as a linear timeline that has interesting ways of letting you know about the history of each of the respective games' narrative. Plus for SOMA is that they have differing gameplay experiences in the enemy encounters, and that does have a feeling of shaking up the formula. This is pretty awesome and a step up from Amnesia, despite the fact that it was clear that the lack of enemy variety wasn't an issue in Amnesia. Side note, do you love how everyone refers to the Dark Descent as Amnesia because nobody gives a shit that Machine for Pigs happened? I think that's funny. Let's see what some people are saying about this anyway, shall we?
Running low on resources and mismanaging your inventory to a point of desperation is a real layer of personal, play-based horror that dark hallways and flashing lights alone just cannot convey. And SOMA misses out on a lot of what seems to be an intended horror atmosphere by stripping out extra layers of interactive horror.
So if you were to say, Yahtzee, here's a new first-person survival horror adventure game where you can't fight and spend half your time crouched in shadows avoiding looking at monsters and the other half clumsily flinging physics objects off shelves looking for documents and puzzle solutions, also it's by Frictional Games, I would reply, why did you just say precisely the same sentence twice?
And that's what breaks the illusion here. It's the inconsistent, wishy-washy AI monsters that give you easy glimpses at the zippers behind their costumes. Getting creative and trying to block their path with physics objects and locked doors, which was a tactic that was encouraged and fully implemented in Amnesia, just breaks the AI in this one.
Alright, so as Yahtzee said, Frictional don't stand very far away from their comfort zone. They've made a selection of games that all match on a fundamental level, yes, but to end the discussion there would be pretty boring, right? The differences are what makes this whole thing interesting. As Bunnyhop pointed out, the lack of mechanics sends a clear feeling to the player, and that is a lack of creativity and control over your own survival in the gameplay. It makes for a more scripted feel of danger, instead of it being down to you individually. I imagine a lot of people would have dealt with this scenario very differently on their first attempt, and that's what makes it feel really alive. The monsters themselves are still very commendable from a design perspective, though as we have commented before, they should have been refined to a significant amount further.
It feels like they came up with a really contrived reason for there to be monsters, and then had to come up with another contrived reason for why they're trying to kill you. Contrivance upon contrivance for no better reason than to have the hunty gameplay again. It's like watching weird porn.
Now it's pretty easy to make a statement like that, since every game is contrived to sell something, be it the story or the gameplay. I stand by the fact that SOMA's story is pretty darn incredible, and the monsters being a part of that narrative helps desperately sell these horrifying choices and philosophical questions we have to ask ourselves. Saying it's merely there to provide the gameplay is massively disingenuous, especially when listening to Ross's diary from Tau.
The WoW is reaching out to every machine, every life form, to manipulate, to control. It's trying to help save its creators from all this, just like the protocol demands. But really, what is good enough? Where is the line drawn for what is human and what is not? Would walking corpses do? Would a group of machines thinking they're human be acceptable? We can't trust a machine to know, to understand what it means to be. We have to terminate the WoW project. It can be done. I just need to get some help from Omicron.
So the feeling that there simply isn't much to do in terms of gameplay is definitely a commonly felt perspective by a lot of people who reviewed this game.
It didn't occur to me until very, very recently. When we released SOMA, a lot of people thought that the game had less gameplay than Amnesia, but I was like, shit, how can this be? Because the game there's more stuff to do in SOMA than there was in Amnesia. There's more variation to it. There's a lot more to do. There's more sort of interactions to do. You get a lot of more freedom with stuff, but still people feel like there's less gameplay in it. And I started thinking, okay, what are the things that are different? And the stuff that are different in those two games are stuff like the sanity system, and the puzzles are often spread out over a larger area, and there's more parts to it. And there's also the enemies have some extra. You can sort of hide behind doors. You can make some sort of tactics with them.
When we're considering what can be done, yes, there is more variety and interaction in SOMA, but none of it holds weight in terms of the planning stuff he was talking about. When I realized in Machine for Pigs that the only thing I could pick up was notes, and well, that was basically it, I realized I didn't need to look around and whatever in this world because it didn't matter anymore, aside from looking at the Victorian art style. This kind of criticism doesn't really apply to SOMA as much, since there are objects to tell more story and add more to the characters. Honestly, I found myself excited to reach certain rooms because I thought maybe I'd be getting more information about what happened. However, this doesn't take away from how it's making people feel, and that feeling can impact the overall sense of fear, which kind of implies that SOMA isn't meant for general audiences. That its themes and gameplay are more of an acquired taste. Hell, I would have preferred to manage something of a resource. I just think it's pertinent that a game with even the most simplistic planning makes you feel like you're more in control of options when in reality you aren't. And that's all video games are for the most part, illusion with a base of mechanics. It's still undeniable that despite the puzzles being perceived to be fewer and further between, they match their environment better than the previous titles and assist in binding the world together.
And I think what the progression is, as somebody described it quite well the other day, that they said that in Penumbra, the puzzles and things in Penumbra felt a bit like they'd just kind of been inserted and didn't necessarily fit that. And that's something which has evolved as the company went through the Penumbra series, then into Amnesia and to this. Far too many games where you see a door and a means of opening the door, and therefore you open the door because that's what you do in a game.
Right.
And this is very much concentrating on, firstly, giving you a good reason to open the door, and secondly, giving you a piece of story that you learn by the process of opening the door, and then finally the entire kind of the overall narrative theme being reflected in that whole process.
Ultimately, the gameplay in both of these titles asks the player to commit to actions they simply don't want to, but out of fear for their own life, they will. They don't want to die, but they want to press on so as to not be trapped forever in this place. The goal of maintaining the immersion above all else can often lead the player to believe they are truly a part of this world, and every action they take is what they would commit to in real life. The pacing in both games, despite being different, is rather well constructed, in that Amnesia introduces you to the fears gradually, and SOMA plummets you headfirst into carnage, and then leaves you wondering what's next, and then once again plummets you right back in, expecting you to have played the former title. The fact that the game reacts to player's skill and you have a whole set of custom stories to play through from eager fans who want to make their own mark is evidence of the game's longevity in an otherwise stagnant subgenre. Something I've yet to properly mention is that for the most part the objects in the world will move as fast as you move them, meaning you're responsible for the sound they make, meaning that the majority of your interactions can have some very Jurassic Park moments if you don't consider your surroundings. Their physics systems are awesome and allow you to get really enriched in the world as if it was like your own, but result in some weird and hilarious glitches sometimes. So what do you think? Amnesia take this segment? I think so. It was clear that the management of resources added to the sense of survival and the amount of attention you paid to your surroundings. Though I completely understand the intention, I think Frictional, if they were forced to redo SOMA, may in fact have ended up adding a lot more of what made Amnesia that much more gripping in a gameplay sense. However, it would honestly have changed the feeling of the game as a whole, and I can't guarantee that that would have been better. But as it stands, Amnesia was definitely the more solid title in this regard. And that's about all we have time for today, ladies and gentlemen. I hope you enjoyed part 9. We're finally moving on to a new segment. Next time you can expect us to talk a little bit about the art in both Amnesia and SOMA. Thank you all for watching, and I'll see you next time.